asks Robert, I have a question. You enter a body because you are compatible with it, but how can several people enter a body? So the body changes frequencies to adapt to the incoming souls?
The Greys, or any other race that can create matter from energy, prints a matrix or group of neurons that in turn will create the energetic dynamics and physical support, the neurons themselves, that correspond to the desired one. In other words, to modify the frequency of a person, the dynamics and structure of neurons and their connections between them are altered. That is why abducted people report something being put on their head. Another point there, it is not necessary to have an exact frequency to be able to occupy a body, only to be sufficiently compatible. And the more compatible the occupant is, the more control it can have over said body. However, technologically speaking, the computer can form a kind of converter unit where several people with different frequencies are conditioned or arranged in frequency to be able to enter or function within a single body.
Okay, I have several questions. But first, I would like to start by asking you to describe the process of entering the immersion. How is the process exactly? You put yourself in the pod and what happens?
Okay, the pod is only good for one thing: keep the body healthy and in suspended animation. Why do I say that it only serves one thing? Because immersion technology is already so advanced that you don't have to fall asleep to use it. In other words, sensory deviation can be done at all times while the person is in the area of influence of the system, as they would be inside a spaceship like this one. This technology applied without the immersion pod is nothing more than the same technology applied for lucid purposes and for training, fun, as already described before. So speaking only of immersion pods, they're usually white in color, with a transparent cylindrical cover on top. There are two main types. A. Dry immersion pod of short duration. B. Wet immersion pod of long duration. Both provide electromagnetic stimuli to muscles and internal organs to keep the body healthy. In the case of B, wet, a special liquid, such as the one in medical pods, provides nutrients to the body during its long stay in suspended animation. In the case of A person dressed in special clothing, usually a white romper, gets in there and just relaxes, and the computer, using frequencies that specifically target each neural group within their brain, diverts or alters their perception towards the desired experience or avatar. In the case of long-term immersion, a person enters a pod and is immersed in this special liquid that will preserve their body for a long period of time. It can be decades or even hundreds or thousands of years. The usual is years to decades. I do not know cases of thousands of years, but as I understand, they exist or existed.
Okay, and then what? You get in there and what happens? What do they put on you? Describe the process more, please.
The person is immersed in the liquid and takes it in internally. Sensation of drowning, but it passes. Liquid is breathable. And then the very frequencies of the immersion controlled by the computer put the person to sleep. and divert their attention to the desired previously prepared avatar.
Asks Robert. And are the immersion pods in a vertical or horizontal position? Or are they in continuous rotary motion?
The dry, short-term A-type ones are horizontal, nothing more. Those of type B, the person enters there horizontally, lies there, and then goes into the liquid. With the person in suspended animation, the pod rotates to the vertical position. Once inside, it does not matter because the person is within an area of controlled gravity.
Asks Robert. Thank you. And another thing. With this technology, I understand that you can take people to other higher densities, right?
Yes. If you know the energy address, yes, you can.
And how do you wake up the person?
In the case of A, it's very simple. The sensory perception signal is returned to the person. He begins to wake up. Sleep in itself is another form of immersion and obeys the same principle. The pod moves slightly more vertical to help the person stand up. In the case of B, the pod returns to its horizontal position, and the liquid is drained. It is passed through another liquid to clean the body. The person is naked in the case of B. Attention is returned to the body, and he or she begins to waken up, receiving sensory input again. It is usual for the individual to wake up and have difficulty breathing since the body was in liquid for a long time. They usually cough and may even vomit, as with a medical pod. It is strong and bothersome, and then it goes away, through a period that goes from a few hours to several weeks. It is a kind of post-immersion discomfort, post-suspended animation discomfort, where the body adapts again to being used. Muscle atrophy does not occur due to a constant electrical stimulation.
Thank you. Going back to the beginning of the process itself, so no cables are installed on the body or anything. It is the liquid itself that does all the work, yes? What is it made of?
The liquid does everything. There are no cables, no tubes. It is a kind of liquid that contains nutrients. It is of natural origin, but artificially created. It is like amniotic fluid combined with intrabrain fluid. Varies controlled by the computer. Contains cellular nutrients as needed and oxygen. It goes through CO2 filters and filters against toxins and that remove natural waste. It feeds the cells according to what they need, all done with the sensors of the machine itself. It is imposed on the cells like it happens in the medical pods. It is the same liquid too, only the content changes.
Asks Robert. And they change the liquid every now and then?
The liquid gets changed, being filtering and changing with different nutrients and different amounts of oxygen as needed.
But apart from nutrients, it also does something that diverts attention from brain to the one on Earth. How does the liquid itself do this? Or do the computers to which the body is connected do it through the liquid?
No, the liquid only maintains the body well. The diversion is done with energy, and, as I said above, you do not need to be in the pod for that to work, as it happens with immersions for entertainment. So it is not that we are inside an entertainment hologram, in a room that gives holograms onto us. Rather, the total sensory experience is imprinted directly onto our brains. We also have traditional holograms, but they're very limited compared to this type of technology.
Asks Robert. Can the person wake up in the middle of the immersion, and why would that be?
Yes.
Asks Robert. That is to say that the point of attention does not want to continue any further. Can you explain that to us, Anéeka?
No technology is perfect, and there can be flaws. In the immersion device, the pod is in a faulty mode, or the person inside is in danger. As for example, in the case when a ship is under attack and is already damaged. Then, the pod will wake you up wherever your avatar is. If the body is in danger, or something is preventing the pod from working, it will wake the person up. Another point, in the case of instantaneous pod failure, you simply receive sensory input from the body again, and you wake up.
Asks Robert. But it won't be suddenly, but little by little.
It may be sudden, but waking up is like waking up from a dream, and then being awakened quickly or by a noise.
Asks Robert. And what about the avatar? Is it destroyed, or it goes on as a Matrix character?
It returns to react only according to what is in the so-called astral body, with its memory, but is or would be an empty person matrix again.
Okay, I have other questions. Who can enter the immersion? Anybody?
Anyone, even a cat.
Asks Robert. And come to Earth? Anyone?
Or whatever its energy matrix is known to be able to be introduced there.
And why did only 2,000 women and 500 men from Taygeta enter?
Because apparently women are more interested than men in doing this, for no other reason. Why round numbers? I don't know. This is the data I have.
From Immersion, can you enter only one avatar, or can you enter several and handle several at the same time? Does this happen many times?
You can enter several at the same time. This is also due to a temporal slip or a non-linear experience within the immersion, because that's the way it is outside as well. It is frequent, but normal immersions, 1-to-1, are the most common. I understand that being able to handle more than one body, with or without immersion, depends on each person and their previous experience with that kind of experience. Technology, no problem.
How does the perception, life, mentality, personality of people who have lived their lives in immersion and then return change? Does it change them in the way they are or what they are like later? For example, changing preferences, etc.?
An immersion is a life experience. As true or false, it depends on the interpretation of every person. So, the immersion experience will change the life, the consciousness, the way of being of the person who experiences it according to the experiences that were had there. The immersion may be seen as fake, but the experience is real. It will change the person equally, just as any life does, just as the positive experiences and the blows change any person. It is an experience, and that is what matters.
But tastes can also change or come back. I mean, if I used to like, for example, navigating big ships before, will this passion come back to me? Do the previous passions return? Or could it be that something in this 3D life will make me change?
Tastes will change according to experience, and because of experience. New tastes acquired are incorporated. It is a real experience. Old tastes awaken and intermingle with new ones. It's just remembering, but in itself, what you like today is because it has already mixed with your immersed you. You do not stop being that immersed person.
Are immersions just something Taygeta does, or do other races do too?
Countless races use them. It is very widespread. I would not say all of them, but those that are on Earth or have to do with Earth. They will have their variants more than anything of how it is achieved technologically, but in essence and principle, it is the same.
Reptiles too? Asks Robert. And the Urmas? Federation? Ummo?
I don't know about the Umos. Reptiles, yes. They use it a lot, all the time, and at an abusive and unethical level. Races of the Federation, virtually all those that are at that technological level.
But then, this technology is available in 3-4D, because that is where the reptiles are, right?
Yes, it is available anywhere. Remember that there are no densities. Everything is a single mass or energetic frequency gradient. It is just that they know how to make it and use it.
I imagine you could enter anywhere from 3D, and from 3D you can enter another planet in 5D then? Invade other races like this? Asks Robert. Sure, if they can do it, can they appear in Taygeta?
Yes, it could be done, at least in theory, but a very high technological level would be required, and they would be able to develop that from a lower density. The only difference is that it will always be easier to enter a lower density from a higher one in frequency. That works as a barrier against invasions from the regressives, and also natural invasions, for what's worth. Reptilians use it extensively on Earth because they are there anyway. With this kind of technology, they parasitize or even take away key people to handle them as puppets. This with politicians and famous or key people more than anything, and without discarding their natural telepathic abilities that they use unethically. They impose their thoughts on the people to control. Besides that, they use technology similar to this one, but with a lesser degree of technological advancement.
Okay, thank you. Another question. When was this system designed and why? I know it has to do with pyramid times, etc. That it was a way to get into Earth without having to step on the planet directly. And then ETs took a liking to it, and it supposedly got out of hand. Could you comment on this, please?
I have no way of knowing, or I don't know if someone knows, since when this technology has been used. It is very old, speaking from Earth linear time. However, I know that Taygeta perfected it about 12,500 years ago. involving Ishtar as one of those who perfected it. She also perfected the medical pod use. You could say that yes, it got out of hand because it is now something that many people of any race use to enter the earth as a playground. And yes, they affect the energy matrix field. And as we have explained before, it is largely the cause of the disorder that exists on Earth, as there are countless races with great differences between them, all coexisting on Earth as humans, or supposing that they're human, in a dissonant and complicated soup. That is why we have said before, there is no human race. It is just a biological container to house souls from countless places. This explains why humans are so different from each other. Although there are positive races, there is conflict among them, inevitably, since the values do change and, with it, the customs and the interpretation of what is ethical. For example, many positive races see using a lie as something good, necessary, and just one more mechanism of means of changing a population or instigating or inspiring it towards a more positive end or future. This may be seen as reprehensible from the point of view of other positive races, and that will depend on each one of them, even with the end result being positive. So it lends itself to conflict. They justify lying as an instrument to counteract other regressive lies used to mind control and exploit. It's playing dirty against those who play dirty, like giving them a little taste of their own chocolate. Whether this is reprehensible or not will depend on each race. I use it as an example of situations that create conflict even between positive races.
Asks Robert. It is understood very well. But is there anyone who plays this immersion game seriously?
I think that depends on each person, how seriously they take life and immersions.
Comments Robert. Sure, if I had the certainty that I'm immersed in another place, I would take life differently. For me, there is not much difference, I think. Immersion or not, it's the same. Because I perceive 5D as the game too, and another avatar.
It is.
One created technologically and the other by the mind. It is absolutely the same.
It doesn't matter, because in the end the technological was also created by the mind. So everything is mind.
Yes, so whether I take it seriously or not depends only on me and no one else. Not on the process to enter, on a method.
That's right. It does not matter if someone is immersed or from the source. It is a life. It is an identity. And it is a real experience. It is wrong to say that your experience on Earth is false. The experience is true.
Comments Robert. Yes, everything is mind. But if you are not in the immersion, you know that you run the risk of getting lost here, so you will react differently. I don't know if you get my point. I know that no one is lost because we all return to the source, but still, it's the ideas that make you get lost. So even if you wake up there, you will take some of these ideas there, and you might get lost as well.
You are your ideas. Be careful with them. Yes, you will take them wherever you go, because you are your ideas. They define you and create you. Many times, You cannot tell whether or not you're immersed. So, you must seek your best life and your best connection with the source. That is your ticket back home. The behavior and the experiences learned are the only thing that matters, and not the material goods. Only for the experience they give you. They do not matter in themselves.
Yes, but what Robert wants to say, I think, is that if you don't enter through the immersion, you can reincarnate 1,000 times more here, and with the immersion, no. Comments Robert. Yes, that's what I mean, Gosha.
That's right. That's what immersions are for, to have control over that precisely, to guarantee your return home.
Comments Robert. That's why, Anéeka, nobody guarantees me anything. I only know that I am a walk-in soul.
Either way, you must follow the same path, always in your power, always with your best ethics. That is who you are. It defines you, immersed or not.
Asks Robert. You say that upon awakening, you regain all your memory again. And what happens with the terrestrial memories after the immersion? They stay with you? Yes. When you wake up from immersion, do you remember everything to every detail? You said it's like waking up from sleep, but memories of dreams are diluted. You forget.
Dreams are diluted, and you do not remember them because it is the same mechanism of the veil of forgetfulness. Because dreams are of very high density and therefore of frequency. So they are incompatible with the matrix 3D, and only memory residues remain. In the case of immersions, you forget a little. You cannot retain everything, but you can remember almost everything. The stimulus is very strong, as if you had lived that with the original body, because it is only a deviation of sensory stimuli. If past lives are not remembered, it is mostly simply due to incompatibility of frequencies. Forget about archons erasing your memory. It is something very simple, something of low frequency, does not fit or is not receptive to very high frequency signal. It is simple physics.
Okay, and what are the reasons for entering by immersion and not incarnating in the normal way?
Simple. With immersion, you can decide where and when to incarnate in an immediate and controlled by you way, without having to wait for dubious intentions from afterlife realm. Dubious because no one understands well or has complete control over what they want to do from there. Or that's my impression.
Okay, and do the same rules apply as for normal incarnation? Traps, risk of getting lost, etc.?
From immersion, you can't really get lost like it may happen if you come from the source. They will be lost for the moment as part of the experience, perhaps, but when they wake up, they will always go back to their original body, and that's it.
And what happens to the person in 3D if the person in the pod dies because of anything? The 3D person disappears? Does it go back to the original state in the case if it was the Matrix person before?
If the person in the pod dies, the 3D avatar dies too. The connection with the source is lost. The avatar will work only by instinctive memory already learned and stamped on its neurons that form the so-called astral body, which is nothing more than the energetic and magnetic dynamics of the person's neural network.
Thank you. Can a plan of life be designed from immersion more than by incarnating from source? Because once you said that it is written there in the pod, the plan of every immersed person.
From immersion, you can always add something else at will, or it can be added by whoever manages the immersion if there is someone. Usually not. There are normally only people there who take care of the body.
Anéeka, my body here, even though I am in the immersion, is biological, right? And I don't mean my experience of the body. Or are there differences between people with bodies that are not in immersions and those who are in immersions? Because it has been said before that it is a technological program.
The experience is basically the same.
Yes, but you know that's not what I mean. I am not talking about experience. Tell me, please. I want to understand it.
From within, the experience is very similar, if not the same. Once inside, of course.
So, it is biological, experience apart. Body is biological, only my entry was technological, yes? But I entered the biological body, right? Or is the whole body a program?
From your point of view, yes, it is biological. From another, it is just a hologram. From another, like Yazhi, it is just an idea you have.
But from a 5D point of view?
I see it as biology from here, which is why immersed people can be extracted. Otherwise, it would be just like turning them off from the Matrix, like in The Matrix, the movie.
Yes, I would like to see the bodily difference between those who are immersed and those who are not. And yes, exactly. That's where that question came from, because I thought, if in theory I can be extracted with a body and everything, then I have this body. It is biological.
But even in 5D, the body is only an idea according to Yazhi. It doesn't matter whatever D you are in.
Yes, I know, but that is a separate topic. Just trying to understand the tech immersion part. So, I have a biological body, it's not just the program. Yazhi's topic aside. Okay.
It is handling frequencies like radio. So, if your 5D body has a frequency, let's say to illustrate 54 Hz, then a 3D body with the same 54 Hz synchronization is sought so that the consciousness can divert from the 5D body to the 3D body. Then the 5D body falls asleep in the pod and the signal, 54 Hz, moves towards the 3D prepared body. That is, you turn off one radio device and turn on another in another place. And for the 3D body to have 54 Hz, many times it must be abducted and changes must be made to move it from a close and similar 53.4 to a necessary 54 Hz.
I was abducted then, you know?
I don't know, but your mum most likely was. Many times only the mother is abducted to make genetic changes to the unborn baby. With the DNA data of the person who is immersed, so that the stem cells of the unborn baby can adapt to the specific frequency required, 54 Hz.
But inside that body, if it is an incoming soul, there was already another soul, right? You have to have some kind of agreement between the two, right?
Yes, that body could have another person and it leaves at a specific point, walking. Or it is already a life plan where a person immersed in another planet uses a baby entering to adapt it to its use before someone else, another soul, snatches it.
How do you talk to this other person, soul, to reach an agreement?
There are agreements before birth on another plane,
asks Robert. That is to say that everything depends on the mother. But if you enter an adult body, it just depends on the frequency.
Yes, everything depends on the frequencies, and in the case of a walk-in, it is also by agreement before birth that one person will use that body until that date, and the other soul from that date. But since memory is still in the etheric field, be it the astral or energy body and DNA, that new soul shares or uses the memory of the soul that used that body before. So it acquires and inherits the memory history of that other soul. It is like buying a used car. You buy the car and its manias and problems.
It's just that you can't get rid of those memories that are not yours, a bit poorly designed.
It depends on your purpose as the buyer of the used car,
asks Robert. And if it is an organic portal, what does it depend on? Just for that container to be free, unoccupied?
Yes, organic portal. It is when a soul withdraws and says, "Enough of this, I'm leaving," but the body remains alive because it has memory as a program in the astral body and energy body and DNA. But there is no one there anymore, and any entity or disembodied soul that has a sufficient, consistent, or similar frequency can enter to use that organic portal. It's just that for a person to be empty and for their soul to leave, that person had to have experienced strong traumas in his life. That is why the soul withdraws and leaves. So it becomes free for entities according to that body, and logically, it is of low frequency.
Asks Robert. You mean that to enter this body that I am, the soul that came out had some kind of trauma? How come I don't remember that?
No, that happens with regressive ones, but not necessarily. But it does not necessarily have to be due to trauma, but simply due to prenatal agreements, as in your case.
Conversation with Yazhi. Is the experience of the immersed person different in any way from the non-immersed one? Are there ways to feel something? How to recognize it? It's basically the same life experience. They are lives and experience is what counts. But having said that, it has been reported or noted that people in immersion have a stronger tendency to remember, even if it's just internally, that they are not from Earth and are from another place. Many times recovering part of the memory, at least the part that related to his or her non-human identity, as if being starseeds were something more important or relevant than for the other starseeds that may even turn out to be very matrix. They are the ones who go around saying that they are not human, more than other starseeds. Do you know where all the Taigetan immersed starseeds are? If they all have tracking chips, you should know, right? No, we only know where a handful of them are. This by choice. And implants? It has been said in the production's video that all starseeds carry it. Without the exact frequency of the implant, we can't detect who is who. They all have it, but we can't necessarily read them. Then what do they serve? Because the gardeners use them. More than anything, it is for them, the grace. I understand. Okay, another question. For people who are immersed, can they still get lost here in 3D? Or whatever happens, they will always wake up in the pod? Also, what about those entities waiting for people after death? Does it relate to immersed people too? That's the difference with the ones who go in directly from source. Not really source, but a higher plane. There is no way an immersed soul can get lost. And the entities, no, they are not really there. Those are manifested as part of a collective idea. And for immersed people, they simply just jump over those. Nothing would happen, esoterically speaking. Dolores Cannon referred to this as some kind of Teflon coating starseeds in Immersion had. She even extended that Teflon coating to standard starseeds. Again, this ties to the concept of karma being an illusion and only in-game money that only holds value when in the game of life. So basically, even if I become a bad person, work for the Illuminati, I still wake up on the ship like nothing happened. That gives the immersed people a lot less to worry about, right? On the other side, once you have finished your killing spree, one of your victims would come and tell you that he or she would like to go in again, but he or she wants to be the killer next time. When would that victim tell me that? They won't be with me on the ship after I wake up there. And even if I found them there, I would say, no, thank you. And what is there technologically, really, that makes the immersed ones jump over anything? Nothing so complicated. Just the fact that from the immersion pod technology's point of view, everything is a game and not serious. So you just wake up to whatever you were before, leaving behind game or in-game events. But I think at some point in the past you did say that if I could, I can skip my pod and go directly to the source. But that wouldn't mean that my pod, me, wouldn't wake up. No, as an immersed starseed, you need to make a pit stop in your original body before going to source. Can't go directly. That's how it works. It's like dying in a game. You don't really die in real life. Same here. Okay, another question. I understand that the technology of immersion was developed after installment of Van Allen belt. But why was it developed? The only way to understand what a population needs is to understand the people at a ground level. And there always have been stellars around, stepping down. And immersion programs were not really necessary, as you could just go there. You were welcome. But then, it was not customary any longer. And there was no reason why we could not use the standard holodeck system to experience the immersion as someone on Earth lives, being that someone, for a few minutes or hours. But then the system was not enough, as you could only spend so much time in it as a simulation. And then more and more people appeared, wanting to experience knowing what it is to live in such a limited perception density. So the need for a more complete or extreme technology arose. So what was done was to splice the medical pod healing technology with the hologram simulation program, giving people the opportunity to remain in and keep their original body in a controlled state of hypersleep, akin to a coma, while they experience a full immersion simulation as if they were indigenous population. The medical pod would provide all the original body would need, including stimulation to avoid body atrophy, especially muscle, while the consciousness attention could be rerouted to another point. And immersion pods were born. Wow, you said at one point that you feel this technology added to the mess on Earth. In general, the schism on Earth is also not only the result of the added stress of so many races going in as humans, each one thinking they are human, but that is just a setting in the immersion pods, and the level of consciousness memory self-retention is adjustable by the user. See, the problem is that while countless very different races are aware that they are different races, there is no problem, while they are positive. But in the instant when they forget they are different races, they all start acting out in a strange ego manner, creating a mess, because each race and individual will want to impose their way of seeing things upon the rest, thinking they are all the same race. My memory settings are low. Memory settings are your fault and yours alone, Gosha. Sorry for pointing this out. I don't doubt. I just hope I will be laughing at all this when I finally return. Can you readjust it? No, it's done from the inside the pod. We don't have the access to it. That is a safety precaution set for respect of the wants and needs of the user. We do keep a crew keeping an eye on the pods though. Why? What's there to keep an eye on? Why? Want all those immersed people to be left there sleeping in a jar with no supervision? I guess not, no. And something else you once said, that this supervising crew makes sure everything is going as planned. Going as planned? What does that mean? How do they know what's planned? The starseeds in the pods planned their incarnations, their immersions. Holy moly, does it state there outside the pod on some notepad what my plan is? I want to know what's on it. Is mine going as I planned it? I don't hold the answer, and sometimes it is better not to know. Yes, things are already written and planned, from that perspective anyway. Yet they do go sideways, because it's not exactly only a simulation. So there, you do have free will, and sometimes you do mess things up there. I personally dislike immersions, as I've seen so many horrors develop because of them. This is my worry when I go up one day, remembering myself and realizing my immersion did not go as planned. Then you must learn to let things go, because they never go as planned, and you are not going to be constantly repeating everything to see if this next time things will work as you want them to work, kind of like a bee banging on a closed glass window, thinking the next time it will fly away into freedom. Some things are not meant to be solved or won, but the winning is in the learning that you must let go.